if you're somebody that's a really big sports fan and you're willing to take your talents to the next level, whether if it's in the broadcasting or the control room side of things, on camera, off camera, you're just willing to like go for it. If there's one thing I can tell anybody right now is to be yourself, have the confidence, and just do what you love to do. If you really love working in sports, go for it.
Hello and welcome to the Job Dictionary. Today I will be interviewing Robert Lyon to learn what it's like to work as a sports camera operator for Power Station Events and Ross Video. This can also be known as a freelance camera operator, or replay operator. So Robert, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, hey Alexia, thank you for having me. I'm super excited for this.
Of course, we're super excited to have you on. So we're going to go ahead and get started. 3 questions that we always like to start off with are, in your own words, what exactly do you do? So this can be kind of like your title, the company that you work for, the size of your company. Just tell us what you do in your own words.
Okay, so I am currently a freelance camera operator for many different companies out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of Power Station Events. I've done camera work for them for the Bridgeport Highlanders hockey team in the AHL. And for Ross Video, I've done many different events with them as a camera operator, from the Hoop Hall Classic up in Springfield, Massachusetts. And recently, a couple weeks ago, I did a game up at UConn for the Women's Ice Hockey Big East Title Championship game. And it was huge there. But
Yeah.
I also freelance with ESPN Plus.
Nice. So whenever you say freelance, what exactly does that mean?
It's basically like you're available in any sort of capacity, whether if you're a full-time employee or a part-time employee. Like if you don't have anything going on in your full-time stuff and you're looking for like work in your area or elsewhere, like that is not in the state, you can go out of it, like in the East Coast, that's like close for you to drive. So that's how I can pretty much describe freelance. It's kind of like you're free to work whenever.
Right. That sounds awesome. So there's a lot of flexibility in that.
Yeah.
So the next question I have is, where are you located right now?
I currently live in Hampton, Connecticut. I lived in Hamden for pretty much all my life, really.
Nice. And then you're working there right now. You're stationed there.
Yeah, I'm stationed there.
Awesome. And then this one's kind of a little bit lighter. It's kind of a fun question. Whenever you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was a kid, I always wanted to be an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to get into baseball. I used to play baseball ever since I was a little kid, all the way till I was in high school in my senior year. And then once I got to college, I tried out for the Division I baseball team, and unfortunately didn't make it because it was a walk-on tryout.
Mm-hmm.
But after the career was over, I've had a couple of like leg injuries, not like leg, but it was just ankle problems too that kind of prevented it from ever happening.
But hey, you still got kind of in the industry working in sports. So you still have a foot in the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just off the field now instead of on the field. So you're still there.
True.
And how long have you been working for? It can be either one of the companies, it could be Relay, it could be ESPN, or how long have you been working in the industry overall?
For the industry overall, I would say 6 years ago when I started as a freshman in college at Quinnipiac University, getting my hands at the door right away for the School of Communications when they were offering their students a chance to work our Division I basketball and hockey games at the at the time it was People's United Center, but it's now M&T Bank Arena.
Got it.
And I would have the opportunity to work all aspects of camera, getting a full hands-on experience, having them go on ESPN and ESPN Plus sometimes. And whenever there's like a big game atmosphere, it would either go on some other stations like SNY and major ESPN networks.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really neat. What made you want to get into this field, and how did you get your start?
Well, the thing that made me want to get into the field was basically watching sports growing up and like saying like I've always wanted to be involved with this in any sort of capacity, whether I would do announcing work or just behind the scenes work. I always loved like watching certain sports, baseball in particular, just like watching how the production goes down and how the announcers are talking and how the camera work's going on, control room aspects. And yeah,
Yeah. Do you remember kind of like the moment where you were like, wait, I think I want to do this for a living?
yeah, I would say the moment I wanted to do this was, I could even say the first time I ever started using a camera to work a
Wow.
college hockey game. Yeah.
Nice. And you mentioned that you did go to college. So what did you study in college?
So at Quinnipiac University, I studied media studies in the communications department. That was my major. And then I also had a minor in sports studies. And during the time when I was at Quinnipiac,
Hmm.
doing the cameras for the school communications department was not just one thing. I also got involved with our very own like student media broadcasting
Wow.
facility. It's called QBSN, also for short as Quinnipiac Bobcat Sports Network. It's you could
Wow.
say it's kind of like our ESPN, where we
That's a
would cover
mouthful.
sports, and I would have a chance to commentate games, which it's a dream job of mine. I have in the future for that time. I'm just
Yeah.
in the process of like fitting my way in and like trying to make a name for myself, you know?
Exactly. So you kind of studied something that's definitely related to the career that you're doing now. Do you feel like that kind of helped prepare you for your current position in these different companies?
Absolutely, you know, because once you get in that foot in the door and they see your resumes, they know what kind of person they're looking for in their job. You know, they want somebody who's passionate about it. They want somebody with the right knowledge, and it's going to be a good experience nonetheless, whatever you do.
Definitely. Are there certain degrees or certifications that one may need to acquire in order to get a job like this?
I would say you just need to get as many experience as you can.
Got
Just,
it.
you know, I would take as many opportunities as you can in order to get to where you need to be 10 years from now. Like, if you have a job coming up that requires you to go out of state, just take it. You know, that's your once in a
Right.
lifetime opportunity to like try something new and something different. I would recommend it for anybody
Yeah,
out here listening right now. It's really, really cool.
exactly. Just kind of getting that opportunity and going with it because you never know where it could take you, right?
Yeah.
So, what are the specific tasks that you spend the majority of your day doing whenever you're working? What does that look like? Kind of describe it as if you were talking to like a child or someone who has completely no idea about this industry. What do your days usually look like?
Well, I would say the days are usually calm for me, I
Hmm.
must say. Sometimes whenever I'm not working, I would just go to the gym and stay like mentally prepared and everything,
Right.
doing all sorts of workouts to just stay like in shape. You know, you always want to look pretty good, and especially when you're going into work with employees. Sometimes they judge you, sometimes they don't, just by your
Hmm.
appearance and everything. So it's
Yeah.
always good to stay in shape and keep a healthy mindset. And, you know, it's good for mental health wise too.
Exactly. And then whenever you are working or you are in a job, what kind of tasks do you do as soon as you clock in, what does that look like?
Well, as soon as I clock in, I check in with one of the producers, you might as well say, whether if it's in a control room or in a truck, a video truck.
Got it.
And they say what your assignment is and this and that. And we're going to be allowed to like unload a truck basically with video equipment and like set up cameras, set up all the audio equipment, lighting, you know, just to get all the production set up and get the wires ready to load them in to the arena or like small stadium, whether if it's indoors or outdoors. We're
Yeah.
always like on par into like getting things done so that we're able to go when it's time for game day.
Exactly. Beforehand, just kind of better prepare. And then game days, what do those look like?
Oh yeah, a lot of the game days that I worked at, it's been a lot. Like over these last 6 years, I've seen big crowds, I've seen small crowds, I've seen basically everything you could imagine. Like
Yeah.
the atmosphere and like working in Division 1 college sports and then having to take that talent to other places like Ross Video and Power Station with some of
Hmm.
the stuff that I've worked at in the Islanders. Huge, huge difference for professional level because you're basically working in a minor league system for the New York Islanders we're talking about here from the
Yeah.
NHL. And it's really, really cool to have that nice experience.
So, as a camera operator, what exactly do you do? Are you on different shots? Is there a team involved? Kind of tell us a little bit about what the specific task is for a camera operator.
Oh, yeah. So the specific task for a camera operator, it really all depends on what camera you choose.
Hmm.
Basically, they can assign you a camera, or you can even say, hey, I want to use this camera or that. And
Got it.
so there's like many different cameras. So camera one is like the main, that's how we call it in the industry. You're
Hmm.
basically holding the camera, like saying if I was doing a hockey game, I would be the one capturing all the action, turning the camera from left to right, also maintaining the puck at all times. And right next to me is another camera, or as we call it, camera two, which would be the replay camera, which means I would have to zoom in on that player to just make a good impression of following them all the way to the puck into the ice so that they would check in a goal.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds intense.
Yeah, it's very intense, and then sometimes it could get a little crazy because you're always trying to find a certain player because hockey's a fast-paced sport
Hmm.
everywhere, and you're always trying to like find that puck everywhere every time. Even if like you're on handheld and you have to hold a camera on your shoulder, it's intense. Like
Yeah.
when I did this Yukon game for Ross Video, I was on handheld. Let me tell you, the game went into overtime,
Oh my
and
goodness.
my shoulder was just like it was about to pop any second. But in the end, thankfully it didn't. But it was just so sore at the end,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
can imagine.
because there was no score moving forward. But
And that
it,
heavy equipment on you, just and then the crowd in the background. I'm sure that's a lot of intense focus that you also have to do on your
yeah.
end.
Sometimes they would ask you for crowd shots whenever there's like a media timeout or someone takes a timeout. You
Okay.
always want to get that good general fan reaction. I think it's really, really important for that.
Right. And then coming off of that, what parts of your job are most exciting to you?
I would say some of the most exciting parts of it was just to get like a good opportunity to work at. Like,
Hmm.
for example, last September, I had the chance to work at Mohegan Sun Arena. It's out in Uncasville, Connecticut. I mean, I had previously worked there as a seasonal intern, covering the, well, not covering, like working the WNBA Connecticut Sun. Sometimes as a camera operator, sometimes utility guy. But the best experience that I had too was like filming a whole ton of concerts that happened there and
Hmm.
doing a WNBA playoff game last September by following players into the locker room as they're coming out. And so it would be on the live broadcast for ESPN. And
Yeah.
it's something like you see that. It's almost like NBA players were coming down the hall, like almost like a Luka Doncic or LeBron James coming down the hall. You always want to like frame them right for their. And then sometimes I would be holding a light at the same
Wow.
time. We would switch off, like, hey, take off the camera. You need to have the light in your hand so you can get into their face, whether if they're like 7 feet tall, 6'8", whatever, you
Yeah.
know. But it was insane too, and it was a pretty cool experience because it's the WNBA, the Women's Basketball League, right behind the men the NBA.
Wow. That sounds amazing and very exciting. And I'm sure, like, even kind of growing up wanting to get into sports and be on the field, it must feel so surreal to kind of be filming what younger people are watching on television.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes the younger generation will also get inspiration from that and see that. And by the time they grow older, and if they're going to go to college, they're going to say, you know what? That's exactly what I want to do when I'm older.
Exactly. And then kind of on the flip side of that, what part of your job is either hard or emotional, challenging, even boring if there's ever a moment where it's boring?
Hmm.
What are kind of those challenging aspects for you?
I would say, let me get the boring stuff out of the way first. Um, the boring part, I must say, would be if a game drags on, whether if it's
Mm,
basketball, hockey, or any other sport. It's just sometimes it can lose your grip and almost kind of take me out of it, almost like losing confidence. But then
got it.
when teams start scoring again, you're able to pick up the pace again, but also you're trying to do all this stuff at the same time just to try to put on a good game. And sometimes the anxiety levels are high. And if there is a point in time where you're not doing so good on the camera, then
Hmm.
somebody's going to notice it. They'll have a talk with you, but not a mean talk. It will be a good talk to like get your confidence level up, and that's really what you want is just the confidence level moving forward.
Right. And then I'm sure this is kind of a physically exhausting job as well, having all this heavy equipment on you and having to run, around the field or back and forth. Do you feel like that's true?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that 100% because
Yeah,
sometimes you're on a field or even like up in a booth in a Raptors in the stands, and
that can
even
be
if you have
tiring.
heavy equipment, it'll get a toll on you.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
bet. So to move on to some rapid fire questions, I'm gonna ask these questions. You can kind of answer them in little fast increments. What is a day in the life like in terms of whenever you do work, whenever you do have a job? Wake up time, start time, end time. Are there any breaks in between?
Oh yeah. So wake up time can basically be for me like any time, but
Mm-hmm.
for working out at the gym, I would usually wake up at 8 a.m., get there at a certain time before quarter of 9, eat a quick breakfast, and then when it comes to the day that I have to work somewhere, I just get in the car certain time. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they'll ask you to be an hour before or 2 hours before, but in this
Oh,
case, it would be 2 or 3 hours. Like for this
got it.
UConn game for Ross Video, I had to be there at approximately 6 o'clock in the morning for a 12 o'clock game.
Wow. So early
And
call
you would
times.
get a meal break, of course. They have to feed you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you would either find the closest place in the area, or if you packed a little breakfast thing in your backpack or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, always basically timing yourself correctly. And then when
Yeah.
it's game time, 12 o'clock puck drop, it goes on for a couple hours. Game ends nearly 3:30. After that, packing things up, making sure you don't leave anything behind. You know, don't break anything, of course,
Yeah.
and pack it away, clock out, 4:30, drive all the way home, and that would be the end of my day.
Wow. And then are these days usually slow pace, fast pace? Is there a like an in between, or is it one side to another?
I would say it's usually a fast-paced environment.
Yeah.
At times, when nobody's even doing anything, it would go a little bit slow. But when we're moving things out of a truck and getting the cameras and lighting equipment ready, you know, it's always a fast pace and it's always a team effort to get things done out of the way so that you would be able to go on break and do whatever before you have to be back on headset at a certain time.
Right. And then speaking of teams, which percent of your time is spent doing solo work and which percent is spent in meetings or collaborations with other members of your team?
Okay, so for solo work for myself, I would get maybe like I would say a 20% solo work because
Okay.
sometimes I'm there mostly setting up a camera and whatnot and doing that. But when I'm with a team, it's usually like 100% more work than just doing it solo, you
Right.
know? Because sometimes you really don't have the much time to do things by yourself until you help others out first and get the stuff right away. and so that people in the production truck can test things out as soon as they can and
Hmm.
just go forward with the production and doing like audio testing or sound testing or whatever. You know,
Exactly. And then what do you wear on a job whenever you're working a game? Do you have a uniform or is it kind of athletic gear or what is that?
sometimes you can wear business casual attire, like I'm wearing
Got
right
it.
now for this.
Hmm.
It really depends on what you're doing. Like, for example, at the Hoop Hall Classic in Springfield in January that I worked at, I had to wear an all black uniform as a camera operator, whether it's
Okay.
on the court or even up in the booth where the other two cameras are for this basketball game.
Hmm.
And so you just got to be in this camouflage mode almost where you're wearing all black, just so that people in the audiences will know that those are cameramen. Because if you wear like a regular clothing with like wording on it, people
Right.
are going to say, who is this guy doing the camera? But
Yeah.
they're also going to question like your dress code and everything. So my
Uh-huh.
advice to somebody on here watching, always wear the right clothing. People are going to judge you, you know?
Right. So more dark colors, no bright neons, nothing of that sort.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. And then
Hmm.
which parts of your either week or months or the year overall are the busiest for sports camera operators?
I would say the busiest times overall are during like when playoffs come around. You know,
Yep.
there's always a lot of playoffs happening in the pros, college level. And for sometimes for weaknesses, sometimes it would be like not getting things done right away at a certain point.
Yeah.
But if I like
All right.
miss a camera shot or miss a player anyway, I could even count as a weaknesses. Sometimes you would get a little nervous going up there if it was like my first time doing it. But over the periods of time, I was able to overcome that fear of stress and everything,
Yeah.
just being nervous in general.
Right. And then do you work in office or remote or hybrid?
As of now, I do not have an office, so you could say I'm basically remote
Yeah,
or
but
hybrid.
when you do go into work, it is kind of in office, in an arena, in a basketball court. It's always in person when you are working.
Yeah, it's always in person, whether if it's indoors or outdoors.
Got it. Does this industry accommodate flexible hours for you?
Yes, absolutely. Flexible hours. Sometimes you're in 10 hours a day. You get a good pay at the end of the day. And sometimes if you have to travel, like if a game would go into overtime, sometimes they would, double pay you for an overtime game. But that's usually not the case. Like even if you travel, you still would have to pay for hotel expenses and all that other kind of stuff too. But I
Right.
would say the flexible hours are regularly, like a 10-hour day.
Okay. And is that every day or is that kind of a couple times a week?
I'm going to say a couple times a week from what
Got
I've
it.
experienced.
Awesome. And what tools or technologies do you use as a part of your job?
Oh, yeah. Some of the tools and technologies that I would use would have to, like, I would always have to bring some tools with me if I needed to. Like, for camera ops, I would have to wear some gloves if I needed to. Like,
Got
going
it.
on the ice, sometimes I have a little pocket knife to like put a tag on my shirt saying like it's a camera guy.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever time they give you a badge with your name on it, sometimes you want to put that on the side of your pants, on your belt, just so that people are aware that this is a professional camera operator and you
Right.
just don't want to get in the way of their businesses.
Exactly. You're in the way of a camera and then it ends up injuring someone.
Yeah. But also, like, if you're in a situation, like if I was working in a Zamboni area for a hockey arena, your
Mm-hmm.
job is to just get out of the way of the Zamboni. And if there comes a time, just move out of the way yourself and just leave the camera there. Your life is more important than just the camera. And that's
Right.
exactly what I was taught the first moment I started to learn the camera 6 years ago in college.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
interesting. That is very interesting. And when it comes to the technology side, I'm sure you have to deal with all these cameras and wires and a bunch of different parts of technology when it comes to this job.
Yeah, it's a grind every day, to like work all the different wires and
Yeah,
the stuff
got it.
about certain things that go on like behind the scenes when it comes to audio, lighting, and control room stuff. Either way, you're always willing to like give it your best every day and just try to do it. That's
Exactly.
it.
Moving on from those rapid questions, which were awesome answers, what do people underestimate about this profession?
I think what they underestimate is that sometimes they don't think that cameras are easy. You know what I would say? I would say it's even hard.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I did one, I thought it was super easy, but it's also hard at the same time. There are a lot of aspects you got to follow too.
I'm
And
sure.
whenever you're searching for a player and they're asking for it, producers, you just got to do it. Or
Yeah.
else, you got to be consistent. You got to pay attention. And, try not to fumble the bag, I must say. You know, you don't want to
Simple way
fumble
of
the
putting it.
bag because if you do, it's kind of messes up the production side a little bit. The producers would sometimes not not be happy about that. But you always want to make them have a good impression at the end of the day for every time you're stepping out on the court, the ice, outdoors during a baseball game or
Mhm.
whatever, you know? That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you feel that people overestimate about this profession? So this can be something that it's an idea that they overhype, or it's a very exaggerated positive or negative assumption. What do people typically overestimate about being a sports camera operator?
I would say sometimes people overestimate the fact that they're just constantly moving around if they're on handhelds. Some
Mm-hmm.
people don't get that from the outside part of it. Like if you're not like a sports major or anything or don't follow sports and whatever, and you're just looking at that guy on TV like, why is he doing that? He shouldn't be doing that. That doesn't make
Oh,
logical sense.
yeah,
But they have to understand it's part of a job anyway. And you're doing that job to get paid. You're willing to sacrifice yourself and just try to make a living.
right.
And you're really gonna have the best time. Really.
Yeah.
That's what I can say about that.
No, definitely. And I'm sure people sometimes don't understand that you guys know what you're doing and you're being taught by a production team. So if you are stationed somewhere, it's for a reason. It's not just because you don't want to be moving up and down.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. What is the fastest way to get into this profession? So, especially if someone has a non-traditional background and they want to get into camera operation, what's the best way to get in?
I would say the best way to get in is to get as much experience as you can. Like if anybody out there is in college or is going to work in sports someday, I
Hmm.
would just get involved right away. Just
Right.
get involved, to leave out of your comfort zone in your dorm room and, just go for it. You might as well
Yeah.
say, because that's what
Most
I've done
universities.
all the way. And look, it works.
Exactly. Look where it got you. And most universities kind of do have a broadcasting channel or a broadcasting production team for their athletics. So I'm sure for college students that can be a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I would
Yeah.
highly recommend that for anybody.
And what are other fields that people are coming from before getting into this profession? So working their way here, what do you typically see people are doing before?
I could basically see people working at other places too that are not in the sports field. Like when I was in college, like everybody says that our student run broadcasting station would only just be for sports majors. No, it's welcome to everybody who's even not a sports major, whether if you're
Right.
a biomedical major or a criminal law major, a nursing major, or whatever. You know,
Hmm.
everybody's welcome to do it. And that was the thing we really did a great job with. And we still do too. No matter what your major is or what your minor is, you're always welcome into joining that club and organization. you know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great advice. Just getting your foot, starting somewhere, right? As long as it's related to the field, just getting involved in the closest thing to you.
Yeah.
What does someone have to be really good at and like doing to be good at this job?
Well, I must say, you really gotta love sports and to get in it, getting into
Yeah,
this. Like, if you're somebody that's a really big sports fan and you're willing to take your talents to the next level, whether if it's in the broadcasting or the control room side of things, on camera, off camera, you're just willing to like go for it and just I would just do it at that point, you know?
yeah, just having that passion for your living, essentially. That's what it
Yeah.
is. How long does it take for somebody to get good at this job? It could be a rough estimate, or how long did it take for you, your colleagues?
I would say it took me like a couple years to get the good stuff because
Hmm.
at first when I was a freshman and doing cameras, I didn't get that as many games. It wasn't really until my junior and senior year where I was really starting to get a lot of camera ops
Got it.
because in my junior year, the pandemic happened. They weren't allowing any fans in the arena except for camera guys, and the athletic season was still going underway.
Mm,
And it was a very stressful time for all of us, really. And
yeah,
having no
I bet.
fans was just not not cool at all. But it was just
Yeah,
something was missing, you know?
another little downer, just taking a big spark out of the game. I'm sure that was tough.
Yeah, it was a very tough period at the time. And there were some other guys that, many people were backing out of it because they were afraid that they were going to get sick, but they needed some camera guys to help out with the games, whether they were fans or no fans. So I was one of the lucky few that stepped up to the plate and just do it.
So it took you from like being a freshman in college, kind of getting started in this field, until you were junior or senior to kind of really understand what you were doing and kind of have
Yeah,
a easier flow of your work days.
absolutely.
Yeah. What is the typical promotion path like? So from entry to the highest position, what is the average time spent at each level? Is there a promotion path?
Promotion pack. I don't know if there will be a promotion, but I would say
Mhm.
like the average rate you would get. Like back then, I was being paid like $20, or maybe even $16 an hour to do the college games at the arena. And even if it
Mhm.
went overtime, you would get double the pay. But
Right.
right now, I'm making like 25 again, whether if it's camera work or
Got it. That sounds great. What people in your whenever people in your field move on, what kind of work do they often go into next?
basically it's like the off season. No sports are happening. Sometimes people are just finding other places to work at. Even like when
Yeah.
my college years were over, I still went back to Mohegan to work a couple of concerts here and there, because they liked what I did the previous summer as an intern and they would love to have me back and whatnot. And
Exactly.
so I was able to work a couple more concerts and everything and even some WNBA playoff games. Well, not
Mhm.
really the playoffs, but just WNBA games.
Yeah, so just kind of having establishing those connections and going back to those whenever you're on an off season.
Yeah, absolutely.
What books, resources, programs, certifications would you recommend to somebody wanting to get into this profession?
I would just go and look on LinkedIn too for something sports related. You could even look at some newspapers or magazines like ESPN book. You never know what they're looking if they see that's something like, hey, we're hiring for this position. If you're interested, email this person or call
Right.
or contact whatever.
Are there anything that whenever you see kind of people aspiring for this profession getting involved with that you wouldn't recommend? So that would be either kind of like a book or a program or anything of the sort that you're like, oh, I would probably stay away from that.
I would maybe stay away from like fake newspapers. Like
Mhm.
sometimes people are willing to give you a newspaper that has false information. You never know if it could be a scam or anything. You really want to avoid scams. That's what I can
Exactly.
say if someone's trying to offer you something. Just avoid the scams and look away from it.
Overall, in any profession, please avoid the scams. No one wants to get involved in that.
Yeah.
So, to kind of wrap this up and all the amazing advice and insight that you provided, what would you tell your younger self who was just getting started in this profession?
Well, if there's one thing I can tell anybody right now is to be yourself, have the confidence, and just do what you love to do. If you really love working in sports, go for it.
Yeah.
Even if you're someone that didn't went to school for sports, just go for it as well. And another words of advice too, I was told by one of my old professors in college too, one of the good mentors of mine, and he always told every one of his students to keep pushing. And that's what myself and everybody else that I've graduated with in the sports field have been doing. We have just keep pushing and just making a best name of ourselves in this industry, whether if you're on camera, behind the camera, or whatever. You just got to keep pushing because then you're inspiring this current generation. You're going to inspire the next generation and the next one after that.
Right. Wow, what an awesome way to kind of just end out this whole interview. Thank you so much, Robert, for all the insight and advice you gave to anybody wanting to be in sports camera operating. You were great. We loved having you on the show. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, thank you, Alexia. It was awesome.
You just got one episode closer to learning about the world of jobs out there. To explore the rest of our career categories and find your best fit, go to jobdictionary.com to sign up for the beta users waitlist. Then subscribe here to find the next episodes coming out this week. And as always, drop us a comment, review, or message to let us know how we could better attune our episodes to your specific needs. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Threads, Pinterest, and wherever else you're on socials to go get our short, snappy preview reels that expose you to new job options every day. Because here at Job Dictionary, we believe your big aha moment can be just one scroll away. Go check it out and get out there. Cheers!